I always thought betrayal came like thunder, loud, explosive, impossible to ignore. But mine arrived quietly, in the form of a dinner reservation. For 10 years, Emma and I had built a life that looked perfect from the outside. A home with the smell of coffee every morning, shared Netflix passwords, and framed photos from trips that already felt like another lifetime. Somewhere along the way, those photos became proof of a story that no longer existed. I first noticed the change on a Tuesday night. She'd been distant for months, answering questions with half sentences and smiling at her phone more than at me. When I asked what was funny, she'd say, "Just work stuff, James." I wanted to believe her. Every husband wants to. Then one evening, as she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. One message flashed across the screen before it disappeared. "Tomorrow night. Same place. Can't wait to see you." No name, just a number I didn't recognize. I remember staring at that glowing screen, feeling the kind of cold that starts in your chest and crawls outward. I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted to know who he was, how long it had been going on, and most of all, how she could sit across from me every day pretending nothing had changed. The next day, she left the house dressed better than she had in months. Perfume, heels, that red dress she hadn't worn since our anniversary 3 years ago. When I asked where she was headed, she smiled and said, "Dinner with some clients. Don't wait up." I nodded. I didn't tell her I already knew exactly which restaurant she was going to. That afternoon, I called the place the Elm and Vine, the kind of spot with dim lighting and overpriced wine. I told the manager I wanted to make a reservation for 2 under my wife's name, same time she usually booked. Then I requested something special, a note to be delivered at the end of their meal. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any answers. When evening came, I drove to the restaurant but didn't go inside. I parked across the street, watching through the tall glass windows as she walked in and greeted him. He looked about my age, maybe a little younger, with that confident posture of a man who thinks he's winning someone else's wife. They sat in the corner booth, laughing, leaning close, the kind of intimacy that used to belong to me. I could almost hear her laugh, the one that used to make me forget bad days. Now it sounded like someone else's soundtrack. For the first few minutes, I was numb. Then came the anger, slow and precise, like fire licking the edges of dry paper. But even in that moment, I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to shout or embarrass anyone. I wanted closure, the kind that doesn't need an audience. So I waited. At 8:45, I texted the manager, "Now." A few minutes later, a waiter approached their table carrying a folded envelope on a silver tray. I saw Emma take it, smile politely, and open it. Her smile faded in an instant. She read the words twice, then looked around the restaurant like she'd seen a ghost. From where I sat, I could see her eyes searching the room, scanning faces, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. Her date said something, but she didn't answer. She just held that note in her trembling hand. Inside that envelope were 10 simple words. "Enjoy your dinner. The bill's covered. Our marriage isn't." She didn't see me, and I didn't want her to. I started the car and drove away, leaving behind the restaurant lights and the version of myself that kept forgiving her silences. I didn't drive home right away. The city lights blurred through the windshield as I pulled over by the pier, the one Emma and I used to visit when life felt too heavy. Back then, she'd rest her head on my shoulder and say, "We'll always find our way back, won't we?" That night, I realized she already had, just not to me. I watched the water for a long time, letting the waves swallow whatever emotion tried to surface. Anger, sadness, disbelief. They all blended into something quieter. Acceptance. The kind that comes when you've finally run out of excuses to stay. When I eventually got home, her side of the bed was still neatly made. I sat on my half, wrote a short letter, and placed it on her pillow. It said, "Emma, you didn't just lose me tonight. You lost the version of me that kept forgiving you. The rest is yours to keep. The house, the memories, the silence." Then I packed a single suitcase, grabbed my keys, and left. She called the next morning. 10 times. I didn't answer. On the 11th, I did. Her voice was shaky, almost childlike. "James, please, can we talk?" Talk, I repeated. You've been talking to someone else for months. What's left to say? I made a mistake, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. I almost laughed. You dressed up, drove across town, and shared dinner with him. That sounds like it meant something. Silence. The kind that says everything words can't. I saw you, I continued. Every detail, every smile, every lie. Her voice cracked. You were there. Yes, I said calmly. Long enough to watch you enjoy the last meal I paid for. She started crying, loud, messy sobs that once would have broken me. But that day they didn't. I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't kind either. I simply said, "Goodbye, Emma," and ended the call. That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've learned that grief doesn't always come from loss. Sometimes it comes from remembering how much you tolerated in the name of love. I moved into a small apartment downtown. No shared closet, no framed photos, no second toothbrush. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful instead of heavy. Friends asked if I'd ever take her back. I told them the truth. I already did, too many times. A week after the divorce papers were signed, I went back to the Elm and Vine. Not to relive the past, but to reclaim it. I sat at the same corner table, ordered the same wine, and this time I smiled for real. Halfway through my meal, the same waiter approached. He recognized me instantly. "Sir," he said, "I remember that night." "I bet you do," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Most people make scenes. You just left a note. Never seen anything like it." I shrugged. Sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. He smiled. "Well, whatever you wrote, it worked." She came back the next day asking if you'd left another message. I didn't ask what she said after that. I didn't need to know. Before leaving, I tipped him generously and said, "If another man ever books this table for a woman named Emma, make sure he knows what kind of history he's dining over." Walking out into the cool night air, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at him, not even at myself for missing the signs. I was free. Some endings come with fireworks, others with tears. Mine came with a bill, a note, and a quiet goodbye. And in that silence, I finally heard the one thing I'd been waiting for all along, my own peace.